Like, share, subscribe. I need your support and love. What happens when arrogance meets intellect? When a man believes that his wealth and status can buy anything, even respect, but the one thing he can't buy is a woman's dignity? Could a simple act of humility dismantle everything he stands for? What would you do if you had the chance to flip the power dynamic? Stay with me, because this is a story you won't forget. The glittering height of Manhattan's exclusive dining scene, the whispers of wealth echoed off marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, truffle oil, and the distinct aroma of indulgence. Le Prive was a place where the rich and powerful came to show off, where money bought more than just a meal, it bought status, power, and silence. For those who believed their wealth could silence any voice, control any conversation, and buy their way out of trouble, Le Prive was the ultimate stage. Tonight, the restaurant buzzed with a quiet hum of chatter, the clink of fine crystal glasses, and the soft murmur of waiters gliding between tables. In the far corner of the dining room, a table bathed in the soft golden glow of the chandelier stood as the setting for an exchange that would change everything. A man, dressed in a tailored suit worth more than most people's entire yearly salary, sat across from a woman in a stunning brown silk dress. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his sharp jawline and chiseled features unmistakable. His name was Vincent, a successful tech mogul whose face appeared on every headline. To him, the world was his playground, and the staff at Le Prive were merely servants to cater to his every whim. His date, Clara, a woman in her late 20s, wore a look of quiet discomfort. She sat with her arms crossed, her eyes averted, avoiding the condescending remarks Vincent made. Her posture was closed off, and though she looked beautiful, her expression was one of tension, as though she would rather be anywhere else but there. Vincent, however, was oblivious to her unease. He leaned forward, inspecting the table with the arrogance of someone who had never known struggle. It was then that Sophia entered the scene. A 25-year-old woman, dressed in a black and white uniform, her apron neat but worn from countless shifts, approached the table with a tray of drinks. Her tired eyes, the dark circles from long hours of work barely hidden by a light layer of makeup, betrayed the fatigue of someone who had been on her feet for far too long. She was once a star student at a prestigious university, dreaming of a career in law. But life had taken a turn, and now she found herself serving people like Vincent at Le Prive, just to pay the bills and take care of her aging mother. As she reached the table, Vincent's gaze swept over her. His eyes narrowed as they lingered on her worn shoes, scuffed and tired from hours of service. A low chuckle escaped his lips as he leaned forward, his gaze condescending. He spoke loudly enough for the entire restaurant to hear, a clear attempt to belittle her. "You know," he began, "a place like this should really hire staff who know how to look the part. It's just embarrassing to see someone who looks like they belong in a fast food joint serving me." Sophia's cheeks burned, but she held her composure. This wasn't the first time she'd faced a customer's rudeness, but Vincent's arrogance was different. He wasn't just dismissing her, he was trying to break her, to remind her of her place. She stood tall, her eyes locking with his for a brief moment before she dropped her gaze to the tray she carried. Her fingers tightened around the notepad she held, and the fire inside her began to rise. "Can I take your order?" she asked, her voice calm, but there was an edge to it now, a challenge buried beneath the professionalism she wore like armor. "Oh, you're still here?" Vincent smirked, leaning back in his chair, inspecting the silverware with feigned interest. "I was wondering when you'd get around to serving us." "Well, I suppose I'll have the lobster bisque. But don't screw it up like last time. And make sure the soup isn't cold this time. I'm paying top dollar for this experience. Or maybe you don't care, right?" Sophia's fingers gripped the notepad tighter, the weight of the moment settling in her chest. She could feel his eyes on her as she turned and walked away, but this time, she wasn't just walking away. She was walking towards something more powerful than any insult he could throw. Something he had underestimated. As she walked, she overheard Vincent's voice, cutting through the air, laced with venom. "People like her will never understand what it's like to have power. She doesn't even belong here. Just a paycheck, nothing more." The words stung, but they also sparked something deep within Sophia. She wasn't just a waiter. She wasn't just a worker. She was a person. And Vincent had just crossed a line. Sophia returned to the table with the soup in hand. As she approached, she could feel Vincent's eyes on her, waiting for her to mess up. But this time, she wasn't about to give him the satisfaction. She set the bowl down carefully, her movements deliberate, controlled. With a smile that could have melted ice, she turned to face him. "Is there anything else, sir?" she asked, her voice still calm, but with an undercurrent of something that made him pause, just for a moment. Vincent's eyes locked with hers, his brow furrowing as he searched for a crack in her composure. "Oh, I'm sure you'd like to say something, wouldn't you?" he sneered, his lips curling into a smug smile. But Sophia didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned in slightly, her voice steady and firm. "You know, I find it fascinating how you think money can buy everything: respect, dignity, even intelligence. But let me tell you something. Your wealth doesn't impress me. It only shows me how little you understand the world. Maybe if you spent less time with people like me and more time actually learning something, you'd realize how shallow your life really is." For the first time, Vincent's face faltered. His smug grin faltered as his eyes widened in shock. The room around them seemed to pause, as though the air had been sucked out. He had expected to humiliate her, to make her bow to his power, but now, she had flipped the script on him. His world of money and privilege had been shaken, and for the first time, he was the one who didn't have control. Sophia wasn't done. She stood tall, looking down at him. "Let me guess," she continued, her tone unwavering, "you probably think you're the smartest one in the room, don't you? But let me ask you this: if you're so clever, why is it that when I speak, you can only hear a servant, but when I stand tall, you hear a threat?" There it was. The line Vincent couldn't cross. Sophia had just reminded him that money couldn't buy intellect, and it certainly couldn't buy class. She had taken everything he thought he knew about power and completely dismantled it in a matter of seconds. He had underestimated her, and now, for the first time, he realized the price of arrogance. Sophia turned away, leaving Vincent speechless. As she made her way back to the kitchen, her pulse still racing, she could feel the weight of the moment settling in her bones. She had done it. She had stood up for herself, and in doing so, she had shown Vincent and everyone else that wealth wasn't the only thing that mattered. Minutes later, the tension at Vincent's table was palpable. Clara, who had sat silently throughout the evening, stood up suddenly. Her face was flushed, her expression conflicted, but she walked toward Sophia with purpose. "Hey," she said softly, "I just wanted to say, thank you. What you said to him. I couldn't stand it anymore. I've been with him for years, but he never let me speak. I think he's finally met someone who won't bow down." Sophia smiled warmly, but before she could respond, a voice from across the room called her name. It was Jason, the manager, who had witnessed the entire exchange from afar. "Sophia, come here," he said urgently, his tone filled with concern. Sophia's heart sank. Had she gone too far? Was she about to lose her job? But as she walked over, Jason's face softened. "You did the right thing," he said, his voice quieter now. "Vincent might be paying our bills, but tonight you reminded me of something: respect can't be bought. It's earned." Sophia didn't have to say anything. She just nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. It wasn't the end of her struggles, but it was the beginning of something new, something that couldn't be bought or sold. So, what would you do if you had the chance to turn the tables on someone who thought their wealth could control your life? Would you bow down, or would you take a stand? If you believe in standing up for what's right, share this story, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. This is the kind of story that can inspire change, make people rethink how they treat others, and remind them that true power comes not from what you own but from who you are. What would you have done in Sophia's shoes?